Yeah.
Um,
So foundations and basements. Yeah. Yeah. So this house is probably falling down the hill. Something's
That's
happening
hard.
to it.
That's hard. You can't. How can you fix that?
I I wouldn't. I probably
You would
wouldn't.
just knock it down.
Yeah, I would probably just
Yeah.
because that's crazy.
Same.
That's really tough. Um, listing photos rarely show pictures of the basement. So this is something I noticed when I'm on Zillow. They show you the kitchen, they show you the living room, they don't show you the basement. And then when you get there in person, what is it like? It's dingy, it's damp. You don't even want to spend time down there, and all the utilities are down there. It's like the most important thing, most important part of the home, and they don't show it. And it's, I don't blame realtors for this because it's like, who wants to buy a basement? But sometimes it's like when the basement pictures are really nice, I'm like, okay, that's a nice house. Uh, but the main things I want to teach you guys, French drains. Do you guys know what a French drain is? Who doesn't? Okay, so we'll get into the French drain and a sump pump. You guys know what a sump pump is? Okay, and dehumidifiers. So these are like the three components you need that you can make any basement livable and nice. Um, so yeah, and insects are actually a great indicator of how moist or damp the basement is because insects need moisture in the air. And so if you are using a dehumidifier, they don't like dry air, and so they'll kind of stay out of your basement with that. So here we can see a picture of a damp basement versus a dry basement. So what do you guys notice between the two pictures?
Moldy on the left. Dirt lake.
Yeah, who wants to spend time down there?
One.
You don't even want to put your stuff down there. But a dry basement, that's like a game room. You could store your stuff down there, put a couch down there, watch TV. It's like a nice den. So how do we do that? Well, first we need a French drain. So if you don't know what a French drain is to keep it simple, we sort of do like a trench around the whole wall of the basement. And anytime water comes into the property, it will sort of go into that trench and get directed to a sump pump. And that's going to pump the water out because a lot of water actually comes in either through the bricks, because brick is actually sort of like a sponge. It can actually absorb water. So the water from the soil will actually work through the brick and then drip down the wall. And so when we put the French drain in there, that helps take it away. And so this is an example of a finished sump pump. You can see where they had dug up to make the trench. Here's the pump. And then there they have a dehumidifier. So who uses a dehumidifier right now? And how many times do you have to empty it?
Once a week.
Okay.
Or it depends on the weather too.
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
obviously, if it's nice outside, I won't have to, but I do notice that like when it's about to rain, it'll fill up a lot quicker.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Especially during the summer, they fill up a lot. So what I like about having the sump pump and the dehumidifier combo is you can actually have the dehumidifier drip into the sump pump, and then that'll pump all the water away. So then you don't even have to think about, yeah,
That's great.
Yeah.
don't even have to think about emptying it all the
A
time.
lot less work. How less often do you have to then?
Well, you never have to
We
empty it.
Won't
It
have
does
to.
it for you.
Oh, it does
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
For
So
you.
the pump just pumps it away. You just check on your pump once in a while.
Okay.
Make sure the pump's working.
So if you're buying a home, you wanna see like that they have, like if they don't have this, can you tell the buyer to or the seller to like put it in?
That's not something that's not. I mean, if yeah, at least yeah. To put a whole French drain system in a basement could be even more. It could be like $10,000.
Today's market though, if a buyer's requesting that, they'll probably just move on. to the
Yeah,
next
I don't
one.
think they'll give it to you unless there's like a major issue. So say I do an inspection. Where I see it the worst is when people finish a basement. So this is for the fix and flip guys who think, hey, I'm going to go down there, I'm going to finish the basement, and everything's going to be great. Well, if you don't have this water management system in place, you're going to finish the basement and all the drywall is going to get wet and moldy. So if you are finishing the basement, this really needs to be there. So, and if it's not there, then that's probably where we could have, could be a negotiation.
How can
Mhm.
you tell it's a French drain? Because I had a home and they said they had a French drain, and when I had the plumber,
Mhm.
like inspect certain things that I thought were unstable, you said this wasn't a French drain, you said something else.
Mm. So it can be tough because, you know, you almost need X-ray vision. And even then, sometimes the people who install the French drains, they use like a cheap system, and, you know, there's better systems out there. So yeah, you really don't know until you see it performing. Um, I would say if they have a sump pump in and the basement's dry, then we're off to a good start.
Whose job is it to see what it is exactly?
The people installing it, I guess, unfortunately, because once they cover it up with cement, unless you want to break up all the cement, you're really not going to know. So that's
Would that be something that somebody would have to open a permit for and then close it? So maybe they can find it. through
sometimes
OPEB?
they don't, because I've heard of them call it like emergency work. So one guy I actually met who installed these, he said that he was like, oh, we don't even need a permit because it's emergency. It's like an emergency repair because the water's leaking into the basement. So yeah, can be kind of sneaky. People can be kind of sneaky with these, but I would say see how damp and moist the basement is. If you're down there and it's just damp, or you see signs of water coming in, then I would question how good the system is.
The other day you told that lady she had a sump pump. How did you know she had a sump pump?
Oh, you can see.
Oh, you can
Yeah,
see
yeah.
this. So as soon as you
That's
see
the
this,
sump-
that's the sump
yeah.
pump.
Yeah. Oh, but that one, the sump pump, this was crazy. They just put the sump pump on the floor. It like wasn't even in a hole. No, it was that place was a mess.
They have some of
Yeah, she had a sump pump, and they had that thing just like with like a garden hose going into the sewer line, and the sewer line wasn't even capped. So the sewer line was open. The smell was like, when you do that, it just smells like a sewer in the basement. I mean, it was so bad. It was so bad. So like just not safe for people to be in that house. But so we'll talk about foundation cracks, because a lot of people might freak out. They see a crack in the wall. They're like, oh my God, the house is falling apart. So very quickly, again, without making you guys like a whole home inspector, how do you know if a crack is bad, like bad enough to be worried? I would say if you start seeing like zigzagging, like the stair stepping type of thing, that's a bad crack, because that means not only did the wall come down, but it also shifted over. So that's major movement. Horizontal cracks are a huge problem, because that means the soil is literally pushing the wall in. And that could be because the soil is holding too much water, which creates a lot of pressure. And once you start having that happen, you really have to like brace the wall. You got to start managing how water is flowing in your property. So some people will have like their gutters just draining right against the house. And believe it or not, during a heavy rain, like that could be hundreds, if not 1,000. Wow. Wow.
We've got a concrete guy or mason out.
And he braced the wall, or
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, because that can become a major problem.
I think he charged her like 2,000.
Oh, to brace the wall? Not too bad.
Yeah, he wasn't that expensive. I'll look into it and then I'll let, Mr. But I remember he did it, like I got him out 1, 2, 3. Water's scary.
Yeah.
The sill plate. So out of all the pieces of wood in a house that you should know, I think the sill plate is the most interesting and important one. So does anybody here know what a sill plate is, or have they seen this in a house?
I mean, the basement, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like.
Yeah, most houses you can see it in the basement. So the sill plate is actually the first piece of wood. So when we lay down the foundation, it's the first piece of wood that lays flat on top of the block, the foundational block. And
Why do they do metal instead of that? I mean, even for buildings that you see 10-story, why they do that? I mean, makes no sense.
well, I guess because the rest of the house will be framed with wood, that could be part of it.
Assume from a cost perspective is completely different.
Yeah, I would say you do see metal more with like the commercial buildings.
Right.
You see more like metal type of framing.
But still, those places where you have a lot of termites,
Yeah,
not a house, it looks just like that.
yeah, yeah.
Worse than
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Took
and
down the siding and the thing's scary, man.
yeah, yeah, and then a whole house, if
Yeah.
this, if something happens to the sill plate, because how do I say this? The sill plate basically sets the full level, like how everything is square and level and like, not uneven. If anything happens to the sill plate, the rest of the whole house framing can be off. And they used to build the houses, they used to put the sill plate directly on the ground. And those that's like a 1800s home, like the farm homes and stuff. They will be totally destroyed with termites, some of the older homes. So this is a picture of the sill plate from the inside of the home, so from the basement. So again, we have the basement, the foundation block, and that first piece of wood is your sill plate. So if you're walking through a home and you're just curious like what the condition is of the sill plate, you can literally just reach your hand up there, feel if it's like dirty and like you feel up there and it's like mulch, it's probably been eaten by termites.
Mm.
I wouldn't put my hand up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, most people, yeah, I would probably say don't do it. Because there are a lot of bugs up there and stuff, even in a good home, like, yeah, it's like, or it'll have like insulation up there and stuff. So sometimes it can be hard to see, but when I'm doing termite inspections, this is like the most important piece of wood that I'm looking at because this, again, it's the first piece of wood. It's the lowest to the ground. It's the most susceptible one to getting termite damage. So any questions about that?
So
Mhm.
if that's damaged, how expensive is it to just fix that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. That's something I forgot to mention. The reason why I bring this up too is because fixing that little piece of wood requires literally jacking the whole house up. So putting the house on jacks, lifting the whole house off the foundation,
Gosh.
and then they got to knock it out and then knock another piece of wood in there. So it's very expensive. Insurance is really high for this stuff because, the whole house is at risk. And you need somebody who really knows what they're doing because they could really mess up your whole house.
So if you inspect the house and you find that that's an issue, can you get the seller to like do all that before the home
Who
is?
who know if the seller can afford it? So yeah, who knows what?
Everything's negotiable.
Right.
Yeah.
That's if they're willing to.
Even the
Yeah.
furniture inside the house, I see a lot of people that would be doing the inspection. They're like, "Oh, can you tell them to throw this furniture in with the deal?"
Yeah.
And cars, that happens a lot too. There'll be cars in the garage are like, "Oh, that's
Cars.
yeah."
That's crazy.
I remember when I sold Phil Rizzuto's house, the baseball player for the Yankees, actually.
Side.
That's right.
That's
holy
amazing.
cow.
Piece that
The
I
Morty,
get.
I
The
saw
Morty.
I saw Morty's house also.
Okay.
Yeah, Marilyn Morty and. she
Yeah, I went
passed
to
away.
Mount St. Mary's with Maria.
Oh, the daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dealt with Al Morty,
Okay.
the son. So when I sold Rizzuto's house, Mrs. Rizzuto, had two antique chandeliers in the house. One of them was a Baccarat. One of them was like, it looked like a Delph, but it was originally gas that was converted to electric. They were antiques. I'm sure there was several $1,000s. So the doctor that was buying the house, he said, listen, he says, Jeffrey, that was representing both sides, I want those two, light fixtures to remain in the house. And this is when the market was down. I think they were paying $625. Now the house is worth well over $1 million.
Yeah.
Anywhere else, it's $3 million. It's an English Tudor.
Mm.
I have the picture over there to show you, so you
It's a
see how
beautiful-
beautiful. It's like a storybook Tudor house. So Mrs. Rizzuto said, excuse me, she says, that has nothing to do with the house. She says, if he wants it, he could buy it. So the daughter was saying that. I should have had a camera because it's definitely a Kodak moment. She said, Ma, he's buying the house, and you know how hard it is to sell a house because the market was really bad. For $625, you want to sell him the light fixture? Just leave it. He says, no, when I bought the house, the people made me buy it. She said, well, how much do you want for it? I swear to you, she said, how much do you want for those light fixtures? He said, maybe $400 or $500 each. I should have bought them for.
Right, yeah.
So she says, so Penny Rizzuto, the daughter, Penny, She said, Ma, so for $400 or $500, you're telling me you're gonna hold up a $600,000 deal? She said, it's not about that, it's about the principle. She says, she went in her purse, I kid you not, we were sitting on a dining room table, and she pulled out $100 bills, 500, whatever it was, slammed it on the dining room table, and she says, here's your money, sign, we're going. And because she wanted her out of the house, because she had already Alzheimer's, and it was too big for her.
Oh, man.
And she was so startled, she just signed the thing. But I remember that with light fixtures and with things being left behind. And they could cause situations where they break deals and property. You know, that's why I always say we as realtors have to focus on the house. As far as with the furniture and all the other little bric-a-brac or whatever, that's all just tips and taxis, and that has nothing to do with the sale of the house, because people, you know, could get, you know, turned off the way people negotiate. They feel people are being petty sometimes, so.
I always say negotiate after you're under contract.
That's right. I say negotiate after the closing. So you can't kill the deal. My mother always says, not over till it's over. So, yeah.
Wow, wow. Yeah, no, we see that stuff all the time. So,
We don't want it.
Mhm.
At the end, the sellers are leaving it for free.
That's right.
And then my clients are like, no, let them get rid of it on their own now.
Yeah, and then they want to charge them with 1-800 John. Right. And so I've been down that road too many times. I have to actually do the job. So otherwise, you know, I have to hire people. They do the labor.
wow, wow. Yeah, real estate's interesting. Like literally anything is up for negotiation. It's however creative you want to be. I see people be really creative. Exactly, exactly. Well, I've seen people not buy a house because the seller kicked us out during a home inspection. So she must have not really wanted to sell the house.
Sometimes, your name again?
Brandon.
Brandon, sometimes you guys go crazy. I had a guy, and I said to the guy, listen, I'm the realtor, I'm the owner, I'm flipping the property, I improve the house. And this guy, he's an inspector, right? The guy buying it, and he's bringing another inspector. They were going inch by inch. And I told him, if you don't want it, leave it. I want it, I'll keep it.
Wow,
And he
wow.
thought I was playing. But you guys sometimes go crazy.
That's true. That's another negotiation tactic too.
Part of going crazy, I remember when I first started real estate, I was in Scotch Plains doing a sale on Cooper Road. And the buyers, I'm not bringing up for any other reason than they used their own kind because they couldn't communicate well. They were Asian, Chinese. And they had a Chinese inspector, and he was there literally for at least 8 hours.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it was-
crazy.
yeah. And it was a 3-bedroom ranch. It was on
With
an
3
acre
bedrooms.
ranch. And he was in the house for 8 hours, but listen to this,
Oh my God.
we're not done yet.
I
So
met him there.
he was in the house for 8 hours, he went on the roof,
Brandon.
over the roof, he lifted up even the mats. He lifted up the doormats under the sidewalks to see if there was any cracks in the slate or whatever. And he didn't even know that there was well water versus public water. And now I'm realizing every time I used to go in that house, I always like to wash my hands when I'm outside going. It always smelled like rotten eggs. I said, what the heck is this? And I didn't understand that there was something wrong with the well water. So he does an inspection for 8 hours and he doesn't notice that there's a huge tank, like a conditioner or whatever it is, in the basement. We close on the house. The lady moves in, and then I get a call from her, lawyer asking about this whole situation. Luckily, we had a seller's disclosure at that time, and the owner, whose father built the house, Mrs. Chiarello, signed that she has public water. She had an inspector that was there for 8 hours, didn't notice him. So we were in the clear because we had all the initials on. She said, well, how am I to know? She said, I didn't live there. It was my father's house, but she gave the wrong information. But it all died out. But that just goes to show you, someone could stay somewhere for 8 hours, but if they don't know what they're looking at, they don't know what they're looking at. You could be there for an hour, but if you know how to hit all the points and you know what to find, then that's it. So.
That actually happens more often than not. We'll be doing like the inspection and they'll tell us, oh, it's a public sewer. And then I'll be looking for, the pipes and stuff and they're just not there. Or the water shut off looks the same. And then I go to do the tank sweep and I'm like, wait a second, finding something here and then ends up being a well. So, from the inside, it is hard to tell.
For
But
those at home,
sometimes
that
looking
was
at the
Jeffrey.
utilities and knowing the utilities
He's
and what's
the-
there
He's
can
the broker
actually
here.
give you some more insight on what you're looking at in the house.